You're listening to the Ground Transportation Podcast with Ken Lucci of Driving Transactions and James Blaine of PAX Training. Learn how you can build a thriving transportation business with real profits, repeat clients, and enterprise value. And now for your hosts, Ken and James.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Ground Transportation Operator Podcast. I'm super excited today. I have operational genius, friend, COO, right, Chief Operating Officer of Motev, NLA Secretary. I could list committees, but we won't have time to actually do the podcast. Tiffany's involved in everything. I can't say enough great things. Thanks for coming on the show, Tiffany. We're excited to have you.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, absolutely. So, of course, as you already know, we love to start with how you got here. How did you get into the industry? Kind of what brought you to where you are today? So can you kind of tee us up here and let us know how you got to where you're at?
Yeah, what's your background before your crazy life in the chauffeur space too? Start there.
So my crazy background is that I actually come from the legal background. I started off as a paralegal working in law firms in Los Angeles. And I worked my way up through the ranks of that to become an office manager. And then eventually what I started doing was helping young associate attorneys who decided to leave firms start their own firms. So there's always these attorneys that get books of business as law firms grow, and they feel like, hey, I don't want to split the money anymore. I'm going to go out on my own. And so I've always been great with building relationships. The first firm I worked out, which was an international firm, one of the attorneys came to me and he said, I'm going out on my own, and I think you have the relationships to help me build a firm. Want to give it a go? And he doubled my salary at that time. And I said, well, let's go see what we can do. So I helped him start a firm here in Los Angeles. It's now $1 billion firm, I believe. And I think he's in the billions now.
Why'd you leave?
Well, another one came and another one said, hey, I got another adventure.
Okay.
And what I've learned about myself now is that I'm a builder. I like the process of building. I love watching something come to fruition. And once it's built, I'm kind of like, where's that next challenge? What can I do next?
Your feet get stale. Once you've built it, you're like, okay, now what? Yeah, I can relate.
The classic integrator.
Exactly.
Classic integrator.
So that's what brought me here. I actually got into a bad relationship, had a whole bunch of debt, and a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, Tiffany, I know you love business. You're great at making systems. I know this lady who has a transportation company at LAX. She just lost her business partner. She knows how to maintain the vehicles and how to work with the chauffeurs. She has no idea about the infrastructure. So can you go over there and see if you can help her out? See if you can just help her, ease her mind a little bit, see what you can do. So I went and I told her, I talked to her and I said, listen, this is the industry I know nothing about. But what I do know about is systems. I do know how to find out what doesn't work and fix it. So how about you let me work your overnight shift a couple of nights? Because that's when you really find out when the shit hits the fan is late at night, right? When everything is comes in the night.
That's when the wheels fall off the bus, when nobody's watching.
Yep.
Every time. So I worked a couple of nights for her. The first night I worked for her, I basically revamped her whole dispatching. I came up with a plan. I was like, this is not effective. This would be way more effective. People will understand it easier. You could plug people into it.
What was she doing? What did you have to change? What was the big trick?
Right, because it was a shuttle system, so she had all these different accounts. Okay. So all the accounts required different stops in the airport. So some of them you were going to parking lots. Some of them you had to go to every terminal. Some of them you were dropping off airport employees, right?
Yeah.
So she inspected the dispatch was actually making hash marks in one place, logging in another place, tracking in. I was like, ma'am, this is no, ma'am. How about if we make each account its own setup, right? Each account is its own thing. And then we could also give your clients access to it. So now they can see it in real time and you can see it in real time and we can cut out all this conversation because we had walkie-talkies and telephones and it was from everywhere. It was
chaos. Operational chaos.
So I came in and I streamlined it, right? And of course, when you streamline, morale goes up too. People start showing up to work. People start being more productive. You see a whole shift in the culture. And so that's basically what I did. I started setting up systems for her. Any place that I saw inefficiency, I created a system. And my goal was to create a system where I could leave it and walk away and she could plug and play other people into it, right? Because I only was trying to make enough money to pay off my debt so I could go back to my regular life.
You were building to get to the next thing you're building.
Exactly. So that's how I got into. So that was my first. I dipped my toes in transportation with that. And as she saw how instrumental I was on the operations side, she started asking me more to help her with the business building side. So with her relationships with her clients, with sales, with her relationship with LAX. And so I started getting more involved in that part and seeing that side of the business. And I was able to help her grow over the course of 18 months. When I got there, she was running 6 shuttles in the airport and she had 2 hotel contracts and 1 parking contract. When I left 18 months later, she had 10 hotel contracts and 6 parking contracts.
Wow.
So we grew exponentially in that 18-month period. But it's really about relationships.
Right.
It's about talking to people, finding out their pain points, and then making sure that you're delivering above their expectation. And I'm always the one to tell people, hey, listen, give me a shot. Because once you have the experience, I guarantee you'll want it again. But let me give you the experience. Let me feel it. See how it feels. See if it feels good to you. So I left her and went back to my legal job, my good vacation and my corner office. And I got a phone call from Motev. And they said, hey, we hired this driver and we're in the same situation. We have 11 brand new Teslas. We have this great business plan, but none of us have any idea how we're going to execute this thing.
How did they know you? How did they find you?
They found me because they hired a driver who used to work for me at the other company.
There you
He
go.
saw what you could do and he took that. And did you know that Motev was, their whole thing was they were electric? Did you kind of know the mission? Did you know what you're walking into? Or was it just another transportation business?
I had zero idea. They called me and they said, we have this great new concept. This chauffeur that we hired said that you are the answer to problems. Can you come for an interview? And I said, okay, sure, I'll come. So I came and they told me, they're like, listen, we have 11 Teslas. Morgan Freeman is our chief investor. He wants to leave an environmental mark. He thinks that his acting is not enough. He cares about the environment. He bought a bee farm and he's doing a lavender farm and he's trying to do all this stuff to help the environment. And I was like, this is great, but this is how much it costs. I have a really great job and I have worked. I mean, I'm a single mom. I have 4 kids. I worked my way up. I came from the bottom. And so for me, it was like, listen, we got good medical finally. We are comfortable. You know what I mean? We're not struggling anymore. I don't know that I just want to get up and walk away from this. I finally I'm on Union Street a little bit.
Because that was this Motev at that time was a startup.
It was a startup.
And startups, man, startups are just a different beast.
Yeah.
They're a totally different animal.
Yes. You have to wear every single hat.
Yep.
And I had been in that space from the legal perspective. I'd been in that startup space before. But at least in the legal perspective, we were starting with a book of business. We knew that if we send people bills, they're going to send us money. Right?
Right.
This works from scratch. This is like, we got to build brand. We got to build clientele. We have to get content. Like, it was nothing.
What role were they trying to bring you in as? I mean, obviously you're chief operating officer now, but what was kind of the role that they saw you coming in to fill?
They wanted me to come in and do operations.
Okay. So at least you're in the right, you were where you were comfortable, where you're familiar. They had the right seat on the bus for you.
They did, but not the right check. So I told them, I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's not enough money. They were like, we're a startup. We can't afford to pay you. And I was like, I understand. This sounds exciting. I'm going to keep my eye on you guys. Good luck.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, they called me back and they said, is there anything? I said, well, I feel bad for you. So you can't find anybody. This is what I'll do. I'll work for you part-time for 6 months. And during that 6 months, I'll come in, 3 days a week, and I'll put some systems in place that should get you guys up and running.
You're helping them get the foundation.
Exactly. And then you can hire someone you can afford to execute those systems, right? Yep. And that should give you guys what you need. And so I did that for about 3 months. And not quite at the 3 month mark, they offered me everything I had originally asked for, plus a bonus. And the rest is history. I'm here today.
Now, Tiffany, you correct me if I'm wrong. The gentleman who started the company was a chauffeur for Mr. Freeman, or am I wrong on that?
He still is. So Robert Garfield, the current CEO, was and is Morgan Security.
So let's just tee this up. I mean, so you had a guy who was a great chauffeur, right? He was a Class A chauffeur. He just knew how to take care of the client. Absolutely. But had this great. The impetus was the kernel of the idea was we're going to create an EV fleet, okay, and that's how we're going to be different. But at the end of the day, this is how most operators start. They're a chauffeur.
Right.
They have a good idea. You had a great benefactor, but now they need to bring in somebody to do operations. What would you say What would you say that the most important things you did during that startup period from an operations perspective? What were the most critical things you put together?
I would really honestly say it's the team. It was the team, because it was a startup. You got to have buy-in. The people that work for you, they got to believe in this thing. They gotta eat it. They gotta breathe it. They have to know it the way you know it, and they have to, in a sense, they have to kind of want it the way you want it. They have to think that it's something they can make work.
They have to buy into the mission. They have to buy into the mission.
100%.
Completely. And so one of I think the biggest thing that I did that set us on a great trajectory was I spent a lot of time inundating my staff with the brand.
Yeah.
And to the point that it was so ingrained that we would hear our story from people and we would be like, wow, who the heck told you that story? But it became the staff's narrative. The staff, anybody that interacted with, they all had this same story and they connected with the story differently, but it was so ingrained in them. And I really feel that that's what did it for us, is that they bought in. They bought in. And anything that I went to them and said, listen, hey, this is what we're going to do. I need you to do it like this. They were invested in our success. And I think that's what did it.
Well, and you said you had, when you got there, you said there was 11 Teslas.
11.
So is this something where, because they had Morgan Freeman's backing, because of where they were starting, they were able to kind of start stronger? Or is this something where it had kind of been running for a while and now you're coming in when they're a little further down the road?
No, when I got here, the only thing that had happened was they had been trained. So they knew how to operate the vehicles and they understood the functionality basically of the Teslas. Because at that time in 2016, this is a whole new thing.
Brand new.
This tech is brand new, right?
Yeah.
Our CEO did an excellent job of teaching them to trust the tool. So they knew how far those cars could go. They knew how to use every gadget, what's it, widget. They knew everything, ins and outs of that car completely. And so that definitely gave them a leg up because they were confident, right? And they had a great presentation because they had spent money hiring a designer. They had custom suits, custom 3-piece suits that were custom tailored. And, we had all the bells and whistles of what it should look like. Right. But it was not, there was no brand. No one knew what Motev was. No one had a clue what it was supposed to do, or how it was going to work. And so that was really where I came in. But no, they had, all they had was training when I got here.
I respect that, by the way. I have to put out there, if all you got is training, I'm with you. I mean, just absolutely.
Sure.
You've got the plan, you know where you're going, but I think getting there, once you've got it, once you've got the training, once you've got the confidence in it, you still got to figure out where you're going.
Well, you could be all dressed up with no place to go. So tell me
something.
How important was the superior customer service experience in the training when you started?
Extremely important. And again, I credit that completely to Robert, because Robert is a Teamster. He's worked in the movie industry his entire life since he was 19 years old. I think he's now 52 or 53. So he's been in this industry forever. I don't want to tell his stories, but before he drove Morgan, he was Brad Pitt's driver. Morgan actually stole him from Brad Pitt.
I didn't know that.
That's a leg. By the way, that's a leg up. That's a step up. There you go.
Morgan stole from Brad, but he had been driving, A-list celebrities forever, and so he understood the nuance. And that's what I think is so different about him, is that he very much understands the nuances. We train our chauffeurs that they are concierge on wheels.
100%.
This is not about driving the car. This is about catching the things that everyone else is missing. That's what this is about. This is about those little pieces of conversation that you hear where you get to tell the client, you know what? We have enough time to stop at CVS and you'll still make your flight. Or I can pull over here and we can take care of that. Or if you need us to double back, we can. Or if you just give me a minute, I'll call my office and they'll have someone take care of that while we're en route and they'll meet us. It's making those adjustments in real time that set us apart. And I credit Robert with that, because he really understood how to get our staff to understand that nuance and really tap into it and really tune their ear and their behaviors toward those nuances.
Well, and this is, James, this is literally what Ritz-Carlton teaches: radar up, antenna up, radar on, right?
Yep.
And
Anticipate their needs. Is the
Anticipate
way
the
we talk
need.
about it.
That's
You
it.
anticipate
That's
the
it.
need, right? One of the core things we teach.
But Tiffany, you're hitting upon something that, what do you think? 7 out of 10 operators don't get? Or you think I'm being too harsh? You think I'm being too harsh, James?
I don't. I agree. I mean,
Because
Tiffany, correct us if we're wrong, but I've had the pleasure of getting to know Robert. And when I met Robert, it took me a while to find out Morgan Freeman was even involved, because Robert's a very humble guy. But I will also share, we've been lucky enough to work with you guys for a number of years, because when Robert found out about us and we started talking about what we do and our goals, I mean, kind of what Motev was trying to do with that and what Robert was trying to do, we've always been in alignment. We've always had those same core principles. And I would say 7 out of 10. It might be 8 out of 10. I mean, we're talking the top 10% of the industry.
Yeah, and I think it's gotten progressively worse, and I think it's gotten worse after the pandemic. And we spent an episode talking about this, but your company is the epitome. Now, how many vehicles are you running today total, just roughly?
52.
Okay. So at the end of the day, you're 5 times larger than you were. And I make the case that, yes, it was about the electrification, but it was also about pairing that with the service experience.
Absolutely.
The superior service experience. And sadly, when you look at the industry, most people, taxis get us from point A to point B, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think, unfortunately, if you look at a meter, some operators in our business skew over there much more than they skew on the perfection of the customer experience. And they don't realize that when you do that, if you provide, I think providing a so-so experience is worse than providing a bad experience. But when you hit it out of the park, because taking care of A-list celebrities is all about anticipating their needs, being 3 steps ahead of what they need. If you see them fumbling in the back seat, sir, may I get you something? Oh, I lost my pen. Boom. Okay. And it's all about the ultimate of the answer is yes. So if you had to fast forward, you started with electric. How much of electric, if you had to say, you're obviously an extremely successful company in your market. How much would you say is because of electrification versus because of the brand you built and the experiences you deliver?
Oh, that's a tough question. Can you start off easy?
But do you think it's
Ken, I would take this further. I would say that the real question is, if we took away all of your electric vehicles and we went to all gas, would you still be who you are?
Absolutely. We would still be who we are. Absolutely, we would still be who we are. And the reason that I'll explain that in the inverse, kind of, because we have purchased 2 companies.
Okay.
Both of those companies were not electric, obviously. They were combustible engine. Right?
Yep.
When I came here, the focus that I had was, we're not for everybody. I don't want to be for everybody. There's plenty of money out here. There's plenty of business. I don't want to build a company that's for everybody. I want to build a very niche business. I want only the people who want what we want. Only the people whose values align with our values. That is our client. That is our avatar. That is our target. That's it. Anybody outside of that, anybody can have them. That's anybody's client. That's not my client.
So how big is EV to that avatar, to that client?
So that client, it's about 75. I would say 75%. That's pretty much, obviously anybody in the EV space knows we have to get in SUVs. They're not going to be electric until next year when I get a new IQ Cadillac Escalade. But they're not going to be electric, and they knew that, right? And they also know we're getting in the Sprinter. It's not going to be electric, right? So that's why I say we have that little segment where they understand I can't give you anything big in this space. But if you're going to get in the sedan, it's going to be electric. And I'm looking for the person who wants that. Or I'm looking for the person who says they want that. That was an adjustment that I made along the way, was that I found all these companies that were saying, we have a commitment to sustainability. We're sending out sustainable packaging. We're doing these things in our office. And then I would go to the meetings and I would say, well, I sat in the parking lot and I saw your CEO leave in a F550 that looks like it is not electric. I'm holding your feet to the fire of who you say you are. Like, are you really this or not? Right? But those were my clients. Those were my people. Those are the people I was looking for. And like I said, we ended up purchasing 2 companies that were not electric. They're fully converted now. They love them. They love electric and they sing the praises. The majority, there's always a couple who are like, they're still iffy, but they haven't stopped looking, right? They haven't stopped looking. They're not active for anything different. So that's what we're hoping for.
Well, and it sounds like you guys have got something that we're seeing happen in the food industry, right? In the food industry, there's a big push for Beyond Meat. There's a big push for Impossible Burger. There's a big push towards, plant-based, vegan. And it kind of led to the rise of the flexitarian, right? The people that, I'm not giving up my steak. It's not happening. But, I'll opt to try and have a salad more. I'll opt to do that. It sounds like you ran into that a little bit.
Well, you put it into your lifestyle and you make it a priority in your lifestyle. And I don't, unfortunately, the vehicle industry, the manufacturing of automobiles is not up to where you can have EVs for everything. No. But it's interesting that it's so big a part of your brand. It's so big a part of your brand.
It is.
So if you had to, look, I know a lot of some people we've worked with, but a lot of operators raced out and they bought an EV, one EV, two EV3, and thought that there'd be a watershed of business basically coming to their door. What has been your success? Is it because of the amount of EVs and the emphasis you put on it? What's been the success of Motev compared to others who've tried EV in the space?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna be completely honest, and I'm sure James is gonna love this. It's the training.
Yes, big win there.
I have been in every market. I mean, I travel all the time, and usually people want to impress me. So if they have EV in their fleet, they're gonna send an EV. And I can tell you, the drivers aren't trained. The drivers are not trained to optimize the usage of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And as I tell anybody all the time, my favorite spiel is, would you hire a carpenter or a plumber to work on your house who doesn't know how to use a hammer or a wrench or the tools that are required to do his job? You wouldn't. And I think that what our industry doesn't understand is that electrification is a change in paradigm. Completely. This is like going from the horse to the Ford Model T. This is not just another car. This is a completely different animal. And everyone in this industry refuses to pause and do the training that needs to happen in order for you to optimize the usage of this new tool.
Give us some examples.
Amen.
Give us some examples.
I'll give you an example. I was in Fort Worth, Texas in the summer. I think it was June or July. And it was 102 degrees at 5 o'clock in the morning. I came outside to my car and it was a Cadillac Lyric. And the driver had the vehicle turned off. So when I got into the car, it was already sweltering. He then turned on the air conditioning. I'm obviously giving the man grace. I'm like, let's let the air conditioner kick in. I'm not going to complain right off the bat. Let's see what happens. So it still was quite sweltering. So after we got on the road and it was a little still hot. I said, do you mind turning up the air conditioning? The man said to me, this is an electric vehicle, ma'am. And I have 2 other runs after you. I need to conserve.
God.
I need to conserve the charge. I don't know if you understand, but everything is working off of the same electric charge. So if I turn off the AC, it's going to run down the battery. He began to explain to me. He obviously had no idea who I was.
But that's not a you problem.
No, it's a training problem.
Well, and no, but what I mean is as a customer, right? It kind of goes back to I mentioned flexitarians. I want to save the environment, but I don't want to suffer to do it. And even if I'm willing to do that, it's up to me to say, hey, you can turn the AC down a little, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's an electric vehicle does not justify that. I mean, it's one of those things where that also, it can be an operational problem.
So
if
what
he's
should he
worried
have done?
about have enough range. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the thing is if you try, so not to toot my horn, our drivers are trained to maximize charge, which means that when he dropped me off at the airport, if he had 10 minutes, he should have stopped at the closest charger and he should have charged. But he should have turned the air conditioning up. But this tells me that they don't have a good charging plan in place.
Right.
Or he's not aware of what the plan is. It also tells me that he does not know how to use the vehicle properly. Because obviously you should have more than enough to run the air conditioning. The Lyric has a good amount of mileage on it, but he's not comfortable with his tool. He doesn't feel empowered in that space.
Range anxiety. Range anxiety.
Everybody has it. They have it bad.
And let me ask you something else, because one of the things, one of the big deals for us was when we did the electric training, we spent a lot of time on the electric vehicle training talking about plug-in hybrids and everything there. But one of the things that we found that was not just knowing your tool, but was the service, was a lot of these guys were really struggling with the idea of one pedal driving and being smooth and understanding regenerative braking, because you're now getting in a luxury vehicle that has the power of a Corvette or a Ferrari,
Right.
and you don't often touch the brakes. So let me ask you, is that something that you're seeing as well? Is it the driving styles being also affected?
Yeah, they're awful. That's another. Well, you guys asked me for an example. That's my favorite one, the air conditioning one. But yes, they don't know how to use regenerative braking at all.
No.
They don't understand how regenerative braking works. But again, to me, that goes back to the training. I teach my chauffeurs, this is your little home. This is your space. You need to have command of this space. And if I'm a client, when I get in this car, you have my life in your hands. I need to believe that you know what you're doing and you feel good about it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people don't have that. And you're right. I have been car sick in so many electric vehicles because people love to send them to me. I guess I'm supposed to be, I don't really care, but they send them to me. And I'm like, this guy doesn't know. Actually, my son and I just traveled to Boston and someone sent us one. And the guy was just like, my son was like, Mom, we're going to have to get out. I'm going to die. Because the guy was just like, and I mean, you know how Boston is, there's traffic.
Oh yeah. Stop, go.
Oh yeah. So, but one of the things we do in our training is our chauffeurs, they ride in the back.
Yeah.
I want you to see how it feels. I take 2 of them at a time. Do you feel that? Is that pleasant? Is your stomach starting to get a little sick? You can just roll down the window? Because certain things you have to experience. I can tell you, but until you feel what it feels like, we're talking about just straight torque. That's all this is. This is torque. When you hit the gas, it's torque. That's
Ferrari level power. No joke. Ferrari level power.
This is it. And if you're not used to it, or if you don't think, I want you to be present in your thoughts that there's someone in the back seat, and I want to make this as smooth for them as possible. I want to take every precaution. I want to make sure when I'm on the 405, I remember that the third lane has that big dip, and I take it easy because they're back there. And I think that you cannot depend on shocks. You cannot depend on airbags. None of that's going to save you there.
If we're using airbags, we got an even bigger training problem.
Well, it to me, it speaks of a commitment, right? Because I think a lot of people in this industry buy an EV to check off a box, okay? Right. And I don't think you're going to make any impact at all in reference to utilizing this tool to increase customer utilization or increase your customer base without a commitment, right? I mean, the people that have 2 or 3 of them, I visited a client that's of mine, and it was a sedan. They got a great deal on them, and they have 5 of them lined up. And I said, when did you get those? Is it Lucid?
Yeah, Lucid.
Lucid. He said, we just got them, and none of the drivers want to take them home because they don't want to plug them in at their house. So, I mean, this is a company. Wait a minute. Why did you buy them? Oh, because we get a good deal on the lease. Okay. I mean,
that's not a business decision.
What's the plan? What's your plan and commitment? Is it me, or does the industry just treat it like, okay, well, it's just another car. It's just another model. I'm going to buy one. Like it's when SUVs came out, the big SUVs came out in 1999. I was used services back then. But to me, that's the wrong approach. The approach is, what is your program? But you guys started with the program. You started with the differentiation. So what would you say to an operator who's making a commitment to be firmly in the EV space? First of all, do you have any suggestions as to what to stay away from for equipment, or what are the first things that you should be doing? You've obviously were on the bleeding edge of this.
I tell people, first educate yourself. Educate yourself and find out what aligns with your values. Whatever your company core values are, first look for the vehicle that aligns with those values, because that's what is going to resonate with your clients. So if you have clients who are, I'm in California, so everything is about names. We care about names, and we care about what year and body style and all that stuff. So to me right now, the best electric vehicle out right now is a BMW. BMW has the best product, in my opinion. right? I
Interesting.
love their product.
Wouldn't have expected that.
And I'm a Tesla evangelist. Tesla has proclaimed me a Tesla evangelist, that I go around teaching people to use Teslas. And I do love Tesla. I love it because it's tested. I've had it for 8 years, right? I know what it's capable of. It's never let me down. I know everything about it. But BMW, I think, has created a product that there is a seamless move out of a combustible engine into a BMW.
It's a smoother transition.
Yes, because it looks exactly like what you're used to. There's very little change. There's only little subtle changes. And I think that for the senses, it's much easier for people to acclimate to that BMW than it is to any of the other electric offerings. Because the other ones have gone so far techie that people are like, oh my God, there's a lot of buttons.
It's a spaceship.
There's no dashboard. Where are things? I don't know what I'm doing. When you get a BMW, it looks just like the other 5 series you saw. It looks just like the other 7 series you saw. There's very little difference. And so I think that is, I like that card for that reason. But to your question, I think that if beyond educating yourselves, I think what these operators have to do is they have to figure out what is their why. Because if your why is not authentic, right? If your why is to check the box, it's going to be an epic fail. If your why is just because you want to tell people, I got one, it's not going to do what you want it to do. You need to make sure that this decision is rooted in an authentic place, because it is a change in paradigm.
Yep.
It is a total different monster.
Yep. So let's address the elephant in the room then, because we are getting ready to have a big political shift in our country. And I have already heard people saying, well, the EV thing is over. As soon as Biden's out, no more EVs, that's going away. But I've also heard the other side of that, of Fortune 5 companies are not changing over what they're doing at a top level. So what's kind of your opinion? What does that future look like, knowing that we're going into a political climate that's not going to push for that as much?
Well, like I've been telling everybody, all it looks like to me is higher prices. The tariffs on the parts is going to get harder to get because the tariff is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
The cars themselves, if they're not being fully built here in the United States, which most automakers now, what they're doing is they're shipping the parts piece by piece, then putting it together in the United States and calling it American made.
But most of the parts are from China.
Yeah, all of them probably.
All of them, basically. So I think that we're just going to see a rise in the price point. But the companies, no, I get more requests for sustainability. All of these major companies I deal with, a lot of luxury brands, Dior, Louis Vuitton, they run fully electric programs. They come to my city and they're like, hey, listen, we're doing a big photo shoot, or we're doing a launch. It's over 5 days. I want 100 EVs. I want 75 EVs, right? Some of my other big clients, they're like, Tiffany, we're having these people come in to look at the company. We want everything EV. And so, no, I'm hearing more sustainability conversation, not less.
Yes.
I'm not hearing any less conversation at all.
Well, to your point, Tiffany, the subject EV, it's not singularly faceted. It's a complete new method of thinking. And sustainability, in my feeling is the Fortune 500 companies and large public corporations have made the firm commitment. They're firmly in that direction. They're not going to change regardless of a tax credit.
Well,
I don't think so. I sit on panels with people from the airline industry, people from the hospitality industry, or from hotels, even from the rental-car space. Even though they had they overjudged what they were able to do when they went on to buy all those EVs and they had to pull them back. Even they're still not shying away from sustainability. They're just looking for a more sustainable plan to re-implement it, right? Because they found out, like, okay, well, people are not going to go charge in places where they're not familiar with. So we're going to have to provide them with a map that tells them where they can charge. We're going to have to put more tools in place.
That's just it's a difficult use case. Rental is probably the most difficult use case. You control the drivers. The drivers should understand after a period of time. And I was shocked by what happened with Hertz. You're talking about Hertz having to, they went huge. That was the president. I think they went huge. But in corporate America, sustainability is here to stay. 100%. To me, it's literally like, okay, tell me what your insurance limits are. Okay, tell me what your background check policy is. Okay, tell me what your sustainability program is. Yep. And if you go, you're not going to land one of these companies. I don't think you can fake it. I think people out there,
No.
even some of the bigger operators, are trying to fake it.
They are.
And I think one of the things that we've hit on that's really important here, though, is I think, kind of to your point, Tiffany, you figured out who your avatar is, what you're looking for, because you do have those CEOs that, they want sustainability, but that's not goal one, right? So you're going to have clients where you might have higher level goals, but that's important to them. You might be in markets where maybe that's not a big deal, but I will tell you, I recently updated my Amazon app, and of course, like everybody else, you buy things off Amazon. Now, even Amazon is trying to push shipping options based on lower carbon, right?
Oh.
Less boxes. I
Yeah.
mean, sustainability is something that's come, and I'd love to hear your thoughts of what it looks like in this new administration, but it just doesn't look like at a corporate level anyone's going to back off of that. So knowing that, what do you think we will see kind of as the changes coming forward, as the regime changes in the White House?
Regime is that's a good way to put it.
That's a great game for it.
We're not political here, by the way.
Gotta be
You
careful.
know what? I think it may become a little difficult. I think there may be some challenges placed in our way as far as what we're able to do and what's easily moved forward. But I think that people as a whole I think it's a groundswell movement of individuals. And not to be political, but I think Obama said it best. It's what we do in our cities and our towns, right? It's what we choose to do as individual citizens, right?
Yeah.
That really move the country forward. And I think that that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that the country is already on that wave. We're already doing all this stuff, right? And so all he can really do is put up a few roadblocks, but the people are going to keep moving.
And by the way, the people who are already in the movement to lessen carbon footprint and to be more sustainable are not worried about a $7,500 tax credit on a car.
They're not.
They're worried about they're living their life based on a holistic program. Okay. It's like, you have a heart attack, or you understand your cholesterol is through the roof and you really could have a problem. Now you're changing your health regimen. Yeah. These people have already changed their health regimen. Whether or not they're going to get a tax credit or not, it's a different story. Now, the billionaire bros may have some influence on the new regime about that $7,500 tax credit. But, you brought up Amazon. Down in Florida, Amazon is all electric vehicles. Are they electric out there for delivery, Tiffany?
We have some. I think we have too much landmass to be completely, but I hear there's more electric in San Francisco than we have in LA, but we definitely are seeing we have drones here that deliver your Amazon packages. So, they're definitely
we have drones in New Jersey too, but that's just it's not doing any deliveries.
It's a different animal.
So you hit upon something that I think we have to address is the potential for tariffs, because look, by all accounts, 2025 is going to be a good year for our industry. Fuel is coming down. Interest rates are coming down. Everybody watch your insurance. But the wild card is if the tariff situation, we could get in a tariff war, the retaliation is most likely going to be on the auto parts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I agree with you that it's, people have to realize and do whatever they have to do. Now, do you stockpile anything, but you have really good relationships with your Tesla providers, with the dealerships.
I have a great relationship with Tesla, and I also have a great relationship with Tesla authorized people. So I make sure that I kind of cover my bases on all points. If Tesla can't help me, I can usually find an authorized dealer who has something laying around. And people are used to, you run 52 cars, they kind of know she might need one of these, she might need one of those. So when we get her one, we'll get her two in case she has to come back. So
we want to hit upon one final subject that we could do a full hour on, is the autonomous vehicle disruption, if you will, or the trends that are coming. What is your opinion on how they will disrupt the chauffeur space?
Well, I don't think there's going to be as much disruption as people think, unfortunately. I think that the biggest disruption that people have experienced already happened is Uber, right?
Yeah.
I see the autonomous car as more disruptive to Uber than it will be to chauffeur.
Yes.
Why? But why though?
Because if you are doing chauffeur space correctly, it's the personal touch that makes it special.
Yeah.
If we take out the person,
Yep.
then you lose the special touch.
No
right?
question about it. Just like a
And
5-star restaurant.
Right. I've ridden in Waymo. I think Waymo is great. I will
Yep.
not like the ride was amazing. It was smooth. It was very humanistic. Like even the adjustments that the autonomous car made, it felt like the human was driving. They weren't stiff. The automation inside the vehicle, if you're a tech person, you love the tech. It's very, to be welcomed by the car, to be able to start your own ride. You feel
free Spotify.
Exactly. It's a great. They put your initials on the top of the car when you're approaching the vehicle. It's a great customized little thing, right? And it's cheap. The price point, incredible. Can't meet the price point. But there's nothing that will ever really, truly replace humanity.
No, they're not going to. They're not going to get your luggage. They're not going to show up 15 minutes before. They're not. They're not going to meet and greet inside. They're not going to go to an FBO. I agree with you 1,000%. I think that it is the death knell to the taxi industry, because I still have clients in the taxi space, and I fight with them all day that your demographic is dying off. The demographic of paying cash, no smartphone utilization, et cetera.
Right.
And the funny thing to me on Waymo is the fact that Waymo has their own app, and now they're making deals to be on Uber's app. I think Uber will be disrupted until the shift is fully over to autonomous. I was in Phoenix the other day, and there are 400 or 500 of them sitting around there. And but I took a couple of Ubers in addition to Waymo, and they said we are seeing 40% drops in our airport pickups and about 60% drops in Scottsdale. So I agree with you.
But that's there, if I remember right, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Sky Harbor. You had to you couldn't just it was easier to go down and grab an Uber. You had to go out you had to actually go further to get the Waymo. Is that still the case where people are going all the way out to like the economy lot?
I did my Waymos in Scottsdale. I didn't do it at Sky Harbor, but I know a couple of people. The NLA had the board meeting out there. I know a couple of people did it from the airport. I don't know where they met them.
But I don't think it was that hard.
No, interesting thing.
It's just further out.
The interesting thing today is a study just came out with the reinsurer UBS, if I'm referring to it properly, where the Waymo sponsored or assisted in the report, and basically these Waymos are safer than a human driver. That's what the report came out and said. But so I think that if the only correction I'll make, or the only thing where I think it could hurt our industry, is if you literally are what I call the A and B provider, the provider that just takes you from A to B, and you're not delivering a quality customer experience, I think you're in trouble. I think you're going to be diluted by Uber Black, and then when autonomous hits, you could be disrupted by autonomous. But at your level, at the high touch client level, the top 5% level, I don't think we're going to see a disruption.
Well, and I want to take that a step further, because I have something that keeps me awake at night. And that's that. And Tiffany, hopefully, we're on the same wavelength.
Just one thing?
Just one thing. Just one thing keeps me awake at night, right? Okay. Maybe it's a lot of things. But, the thing that keeps me awake at night is one of the big things that we struggle with in our industry is teaching the chauffeur's discretion. When to be seen versus when to be heard versus when to have a conversation versus, just being there to serve. And one of the questions that I struggle with is, if that chauffeur isn't there driving and that chauffeur is just sitting in that vehicle to serve that passenger, what does that do to discretion? How do they balance that? Or do we end up in a future where that chauffeur's meeting them before and after the trip at the endpoints? If we fast forward this, 10, 15, 20 years, what does our industry actually look like? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Tiffany.
I'm going to say that I'm kind of with you on that about what keeps me up at night. It doesn't keep me up at night, but I definitely think that things change. Like I said, things change. And I think that we have had, all of the time of the world, there's been a technology shift. There's been, when we went to factories, there was a shift. I think that we are in a time now where there is great amounts of shifting. And I think that in this next 10 to 15 years, we are going to see huge shifts because as vehicles change, so will their operators or lack thereof. And so will the location of those things. Like, I'm one of those people who strongly believes that your expertise is still your expertise. At the end of the day, we can teach AI to use our voice, right? To follow the pattern of what we normally do. What we can't teach it to do is to anticipate. We can't teach it to go off script.
Right.
Humanity is the only thing that will ever be able to go off script, right? So somewhere in the background, whether we're looking at a screen to operate that Waymo or to give that Waymo instruction or to give that vehicle instruction, somewhere there'll be a person. The question is, where will we be? Will we be sitting in that driver's seat still, or will we be in a different place, right? Yeah. And I think that the other thing is where do we want to be? I think one of the worst parts about this industry is we are so entrenched in where we've been, we don't often consider where we're going.
Hello.
And if you don't make a plan,
They play checkers. They play checkers. They don't play chess.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's one of the things that the elements that we're missing in our conversation is we never talk about how we are in a place where we can help form the future. We can help form what this looks like. But we've decided that we rather stand in the mud and try to keep this old thing going. This old thing is dying. Yeah. You can't keep resuscitating it. It's only going to jump up so many times. Yeah. We need innovators in our industry to start looking towards the future. Where do we want to see ourselves? Who do we want to be? What role do we want to play in transportation in the future? And then we have to start making the inroad to that place.
So what's that first step? How do we get, the first step of getting out of the mud is you got to be able to pull one foot out.
Right.
If someone's listening to this and they're saying, hey, I got lots of years left, or I don't plan to ever sell, or if you do plan to sell, call Ken, by the way. Yes, but if you're going to be here for a while,
if you're realistic,
but how do you, it's very hard to be at 60,000 feet when we're used to being on the ground working in our businesses. Right. How do we step away and pull that foot out of the mud and take that next step of having a voice in what that looks like or what that future is?
Pay attention. I think that's the first thing. Pay attention.
I mean,
I'm obviously in LA and I sit in these meetings all the time. And sometimes I wonder, like, what planet are you people on? Like, are you in tune with what's happening in the world around you? Like, pay attention. So, innovation is happening to you and around you all the time.
Whether you realize it or not. I mean, you're 100% right. And it's a truism that most real innovation happens to an industry by outside forces.
Right.
Okay. And, I think the technology piece, I do believe, is the first step. We're still depending on too many people to take the order and to manage the order and to dispatch the order. And at the end of the day, we all know that technology can do a better job at anticipating traffic patterns and no, you're not going to have enough time to do that. So I agree with you, but it's coming regardless. And my biggest fear is, and I used this analogy the other day to someone who said, well, that's kind of scary. I said, there's still a fantastic company that makes horses and buggies. I just bought a Cannon wagon wheels from them because I'm building an 18th century Cannon. And there's it's called Hanson carriages, right? At the end of the day, there's still companies that make buggy whips, but the industry's not growing.
Yep.
Okay. So when I look at the statistics on how the chauffeured space is growing at 2.67, that's just keeping up. What are we doing to grow our market share? Because as we talked about at the DC show, airline travel is growing by 5% a year. So we're not even half that. So what are we doing to capture the new flyers? What are we doing to capture the younger people whose travel is a massive priority in their life, is to travel? I mean, my business partner is getting married in Italy, okay, because it's a big experiential. So, I agree with Tiffany. We have to get our heads up and look at where we're going.
And one of the reasons why we're failing miserably in the market with the younger people, which is the major bulk of the market, is that we won't adjust from a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
We refuse to adjust. These people want instantaneous answers. They do not want to call anybody. They want an app that they can depend on. They want it to be cost effective. They want to share it with their friends. The fact that we are still using outdated technology to even dispatch. The fact that no dig on add-ons, but the fact that we even call it a add-on.
Right.
That is indicative of how far we are behind.
Well, and I'm almost 40, right? I'm no young, but I'm almost 40, and that's what I want. I don't want it that hard.
I was going to say 35.
Oh, thank you.
Tiff is not going to see her 40th birthday for 7, 8, 10 years, 12 years, maybe.
Listen, you just became my favorite person on earth. Okay,
but you just
49 in like 10 days. But
don't tell.
You wear it well.
I thought you were younger than I was.
Are you sure? You're in the show?
I think.
You hit upon something that I have to deal with when I go to New York and I do what I call private equity speed dating, where I will stand up at lunch and I will talk about the chauffeur space and talk about the growth in the market for travelers and talk about the growth in airline passengers. And they all do this. They stand up and they wave their smartphones at me. And it drives me crazy because I know what it is. It's an antiquated customer service experience.
Yeah.
Okay. And to your point, the other thing that we need to realize is all our friends in the corporations that we have relationships with that are running corporate travel departments or our executive assistants, they're being replaced by kids that do everything on smartphones.
everything.
And in my, humble opinion, and I think you'll agree, the future of market share growth in chauffeur transportation is the app experience, a customer corporate portal where you literally, listen, especially with some things that have been going on, where you can track your executives, track your employees, where they're traveling to. And tell me on your end, Tiffany, do you see interface between the enterprise software and the actual vehicle?
With the tech like in.
Do you think you'll ever have a dispatch department screen that will recognize and interface with the chauffeur saying, do you realize that you've only got 71 miles yet left? Or do you realize you've got something going on in the car? Do you think there'll be that level of diagnostics?
So I would tell you, I absolutely do. And I'm going to tell you why. So I have participated in now 3 different studies with 3 different automakers where they are in development of such software, where they're trying to basically centralize everything that happens with this vehicle. So they want, when you go and buy this vehicle, they want to be the provider of the charge. They want to be the provider of the maintenance. They want to be the provider of real-time diagnostic. They want to be they're trying to bring it all under one roof so that you essentially become a part of a family of vehicles that are all in this same ecosystem. And so I can assure you that they are working very hard to make that a thing. And yes, I believe we'll see it probably sooner than what people believe. I mean, I think it's unfortunate that like I said, there are so many people. I mean, you saw I was on the State of Industry panel this year, and they were just like, I don't think it's going to happen like she says. It's not. I can assure you that I sit in circles at tables with people who are making sure that it is going to happen.
And you know something, to your point? Every single day I get downloads from Factiva on autonomous vehicles, on AI, on dispatching. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest problem is what you've got is people that are working in their businesses and not on what is taking place around them. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of difficult for me because, they have certain expectations of what their businesses are worth when they go to sell them. But I'm saying, do you realize that you're spending 6% of your total income on ordering and logistics? Do you realize that you've got more dispatchers than, practically Logan Airport? I mean, you've got that many people dispatching, and your per transaction costs are $14. So there's no question that I think it's all tied together. I think the EV evolution and the carbon footprint and the commitment to being carbon neutral, it's all driven by data.
Yeah.
It's all driven by data. And I do think AI is going to make a big difference to us. I'm waiting to see in use how it's going to change the model so that, tell me something. Why is it that I can, from my prescription from CVS, I call in and I give a prescription number and they repeat back to me what it is and tell me it'll be available tomorrow morning at 9:00. And then they remind me at 9:00 in the morning. Why can't I say to any reservation system, this is Ken Lucci, pick me up at my house tomorrow morning at 7:00, take me to Salisbury, Maryland Airport, American Airlines flight 1067, leaving at 7:00, repeat. Jesus, I mean, you see, it's maddening to me. And then I'll talk to the reservations software people and say, well, it's coming, and there's a service that does that we're looking at it, or it's on the framework, it's on the roadmap. And they say, well, nobody's using our existing app, Ken. And I'm like, you don't even have an existing app. What you have is a mobile website. You're not in the app store.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Dozier brothers out at Signature and to QuoteBot because,
totally.
One of the big things there is one of the people that I think, and for me, this is not if, right? It's when. If you believe this is still if and not when, right? It's when and exactly what. And the reason I wanted to bring those guys up and give that shout out is they have been able to leverage that to where, although you can't quite, and maybe they've got it cracked now, I haven't talked to them in a while, but although you can't quite call in and do that, they were working on the technology to where you could be messaging, send your message in and say, hey, I'm going into Logan Airport, I'm coming in at this time, and it would translate that to reservation. So I think we do have, kind of like Tiffany said, we have people that are watching, we have people that are looking, but I think, Ken, in your world and my world, we said earlier you had maybe the 10% that were doing stuff right. I think it's maybe 1% that are trying to live in that world, and that's why we just don't see that much of it.
No, that's a good point. But see, the beauty is when so goes California, so goes the rest of the country, as far as I'm concerned. Some people think it's foolish enough to think it happens in New York as well. I don't believe that. I believe that all the tech and all of the trends, both on technology, culture, et cetera, start in California and they move forward. They move east. The question is at what pace? But so if you had to prognosticate, where do you want Motev to be in 5 years? Where do you see Motev?
Oh, that's good. I want Motev to become an electric fleet manager. I would like to see Motev manage electric fleets. I think that we have built the infrastructure and the know-how to become an expert in that space. And so that is where my thinking is that there are, corporations, there are other transportation companies, and they want to be in the fleet space from an electric perspective. I think that's where our expertise is. I think that's our next step. I don't know if it will become our overarching thing, but it'll definitely become one of the longer arms as time goes on.
Very good.
But I told you, if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail.
Oh, love it.
Love it. We covered a lot today. First of all, you built the company based on differentiation and innovation. Okay, but you designed the brand and you designed the value proposition up front. You didn't let it evolve on its own. So that to me is number one, is you designed the brand to tailor towards and to target the avatars, the customer pro forma or persona that you wanted. And then you built all the systems around it. So every operator out there, I think if you're an also ran operator where you're not on Google page one, you don't have a website, and you don't have any value proposition, if your only differentiator is price, I think you're in trouble. If you cannot articulate and tell me in a 30-second elevator pitch, what does my brand stand for? Mm-hmm. How am I different? And I think that's why people have gravitated to you. I mean, there's other people that have bought 10 EVs and failed miserably. Okay. But look at what you've done. You're 5 times the size, but you've built your brand, and that's an integral part of your culture is the EV, and it's to be sustainable, but you've translated that to the service experience with your chauffeurs. And I feel bad for people that think the answer is $118,000 Escalade. Oh, I've got this $118,000 Escalade. I'm now going to take a lot of business from people who have a $68,000 Suburban. It's not about that.
Buy the right vehicle. We talk about it all the time, Ken. If we could beat it into people, we would. Buy the vehicle you need, not the one you think you need.
Well, and matching your brand persona, matching your brand value proposition to the client that you want to attract. I mean, that's to me more than anything. Fundamentally, that's what Motev did. From the get-go. It wasn't just about, hey, I'm going to have EVs. Look at me. It was they built that into their entire culture.
Exactly. That's who we are. That's our life's blood.
Well, listen, we've only spent a little bit of time together, but I got to tell you, you are one of the shining stars of the industry. You're one of the shining up and comers in the industry. So we're so happy that you decided to visit our little podcast. So
I'm happy you invited me.
So if people wanted to visit Motev just to see what you're all about, what's the website?
Motev.com.
MOTIV.
MOTEV.
Sorry, I apologize. MOTEV. How did I miss that? It's a Friday.
We just wanted to make you say EV one more time. We know how to spell it.
There you go. Good.
You guys are great. Thank you so much. I had a blast. So yeah, you guys are doing great work, both of you.
Thank you for coming on.
It blows my mind every time I talk to him. It takes me like 2 or 3 days to even figure out where he just finished explaining. So,
well, this is going to air before the Chauffeur Driven Show. I'm hoping to see you out in Vegas and continued success in 2025. Let's not worry about those tariffs or anything like that. Just keep building the business.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. It was great.
Thank you for listening to the Ground Transportation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about PAX Training and to contact James, go to paxtraining.com. And for more information about driving transactions and to contact Ken, go to drivingtransactions.com. We'll see you next time on the Ground Transportation Podcast.